I make this drive twice a year. Denver to Phoenix, Phoenix to Denver. It's a 12-hour straight shot of high desert, red rock, and bad talk radio. I know every truck stop, every speed trap, and every decent place to spend the night. Or at least, I thought I did. This last trip, back in April, I was pushing it. A combination of a late start and a nasty storm outside of Flagstaff meant I was exhausted. And it was already past 11:30 p.m. I saw the sign for the Canyon View Motor Inn in some tiny, one-street town, and I just pulled off. It was one of those classic, U-shaped, two-story motels, the kind where your door opens right onto the parking lot. Perfect. I just needed 6 hours of sleep. I got my key, a real metal key, which I kind of liked, and hauled my bag up to room 214. The room was clean enough, but the air was stale and hot. I cranked the Ancient, rattling a C unit under the window, and realized I was completely out of water. I looked at the little plastic ice bucket on the counter and figured I'd go fill it up. A cold drink and then bed. The layout of this place was sprawling. My room, 214, was at the very end of the right-hand wing. The front desk clerk, a kid who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, had mumbled that the ice machine was by the pool. The pool was, of course, at the complete opposite end of the complex. I grabbed the bucket and started the long walk down the open-air corridor, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The night was that weird desert cold, but still. I rounded the corner past the dark, empty office and saw the pool area lit up with a sickly green-blue light. And next to it, tucked into an alcove, was the ice machine. And there was a guy already there. He was just standing, facing the machine. He was wearing a dark blue, almost black, mechanic's jumpsuit, and he was perfectly, unnaturally still. My first thought was that the machine was broken and he was just waiting. Or maybe he was drunk. I stopped about 10 feet away. The only sound was the high-pitched whine of the machine's compressor. "Hey, you using that?" I asked. Nothing, not a twitch. He didn't turn around. He just stood there, his back to me. I got a little closer, feeling that weird prickle on my neck. "Excuse me, man?" I said, a little louder. "I just need to get some ice." Again, absolutely nothing. He didn't even shift his weight. He was just frozen, staring at the painted beige metal. I could see his reflection faintly in the glass of a vending machine next to him, but it was too dark to make out his face. This was getting weird. I'm not a confrontational guy, and frankly, I was too tired for this. I just figured, fine, whatever, I'll drink tap water. I turned around and walked along. Quiet walk back to 214, feeling his eyes on my back the whole time, even though I knew he'd never turn around. I got back to my room, locked the deadbolt, and chugged some lukewarm water from the bathroom tap. It tasted like pennies. I sat on the bed. The AC was roaring, but the room still felt stuffy. I couldn't get the image of the guy out of my head. It was just so wrong. I looked at the clock. 12:30 a.m. I turned on the TV, watched some terrible infomercial for a half hour. I was still thirsty, and the tap water was making me feel sick. At 1:15 a.m., I figured, he's got to be gone by now. Nobody just stands in front of an ice machine for an hour. I grabbed the bucket again. I walked the whole length of the motel. This time, I was jumpier. Every shadow looked like a person. I rounded the corner to the pool. The alcove was empty. The man was gone. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I felt almost stupid for being so freaked out. I walked up to the machine, put the bucket under the dispenser, and pushed the lever. The sound of the motor grinding and the ice clattering into the bucket was deafening in the silence. I filled it about halfway up, And then I stopped. The machine's compressor kicked off. The silence rushed back in, and I heard it. It was faint. I leaned in, thinking it was just the machine resetting. It was coming from inside the ice machine. It wasn't a mechanical noise. It was knocking. It sounded like someone was tapping their knuckles, hard, against the inside of the metal. My blood went ice cold. I looked at the front of the machine. There was a large, square maintenance panel right below the dispenser, the kind you'd need a key to open. The knocking became frantic. Thump, dash, thump, dash, thump, dash, thump. It was fast, desperate. Someone was inside the machine. I yanked on the panel. It didn't budge. I looked at the side and saw it a brand new heavy-duty brass padlock. It looked totally out of place on the old, rusted machine. This wasn't a motel lock. This was something someone had brought. "Hello?" I yelled, my voice shaking. "Is someone in there?" The knocking stopped instantly. Just dead silence. Worse than the knocking. I sprinted. I dropped the ice bucket and ran the entire length of that corridor, my heart hammering in my chest. I slammed into the front desk, panting, wild-eyed. The kid from before was gone. The office was empty, dark, except for a small TV playing a basketball rerun. A "Be Right Back" sign was taped to the counter. "Hello," I yelled. "Anyone?" Nothing. I was about to call 911 when my eyes landed on the counter. A ring of keys just lying there. And one of the keys had a small red plastic tag. In faded marker, it said, "ICE Maint." I didn't even think. I snatched the keys, ran back to the machine, my mind racing. Who would do this? How did they even fit? I got to the alcove, fumbled the key into the padlock. It clicked open. I ripped the lock off, grabbed the handle, and yanked the panel open, bracing myself for what I was about to see. Wires, hoses, a small compressor unit. And that was it. It was just the guts of the machine. There was no space for a person, not even a child. I stood there, confused, my adrenaline draining away, leaving me feeling hollow and stupid. I was about to close it up when I saw it. Taped to the back wall of the compartment, with a wad of black electrical tape, was a small black tape recorder. An old one. Next to it was a little box with a red blinking light, a motion sensor. It was a rig. A stupid, elaborate prank. The sensor must have picked me up when I got close, and it just started playing a recording of someone knocking. I was furious. I was terrified. Who would why? I was just standing there, staring at this stupid device, trying to make sense of it. I had been perfectly illuminated by the ice machine's light. A perfect target, standing in the open, completely distracted. And that's when I heard it. From all the way across the complex. From where I'd just run from. The unmistakable, sharp thwack click of a motel room door slamming shut. My door. Room 214. I started running back, but I already knew. I was halfway down the long, dark corridor when I heard another sound. A sound that made me stop dead. The thunk of the deadbolt sliding into place. From inside my room, I stood there, panting, 20 yards away. I was locked out. The key was in my pocket. The man in the jumpsuit, he was never at the ice machine. He was waiting. He was watching. The knocking wasn't a prank. It was an alarm to tell him I was occupied. I looked up at my window. The cheap polyester curtains were drawn. And then I saw it. The curtains parted, just a crack. And in the dark, I saw the silhouette of the man in the jumpsuit. He was just standing there, in my room, perfectly still, watching me. I got a job offer right out of college that required me to relocate to a new city 6 states away. The company put me up in an extended stay hotel for the first month while I looked for an apartment. It was one of those places called, like, Havenwood Suites or something equally bland. It wasn't a hotel, but it wasn't an apartment building either. It was this beige, 4-story limbo with sterile hallways that always smelled faintly of industrial carpet cleaner and stale coffee. My room was 307. It was fine. A little kitchenette, a queen bed, a desk. All I did was work and sleep, so it didn't matter. But from the first day, I knew my neighbor was a problem. The woman in 308, directly across the hall from me, was clearly one of the long-term guests. I mean, really long-term. She was painfully thin, with that kind of translucent, papery skin. Her hair was a mess of graying knots, and she always wore the same mismatched, baggy sweatsuit. But it was her eyes. They were always wide, startled, and angry, all at the same time. The first time I saw her, I was coming back from work, and she was just locking her door. I gave her that polite neighbor smile. She flinched like I'd thrown something at her and hissed, "Don't look at me." Then she scurried down the hall to the elevator. Okay, I thought. Not friendly. Got it. I decided to just keep my head down. But you can't ignore someone when you share a wall. The noises started about a week in. It wasn't loud. That was the worst part. It was quiet and constant. It was a scraping sound, like someone was dragging a heavy wooden chair, very slowly, back and forth, across a bare floor. Scrub, pause, scrub, for hours. I'd be trying to fall asleep, and I'd just hear it, right through the headboard of my bed. Then came the sobbing. Again, not loud, not hysterical. Just this low, constant, hopeless weeping. It would start around 2 a.m. and just go. It was the most depressing sound I've ever heard. It started to get into my head. I began to feel this profound, heavy sadness, even when I was at work. I bought earbuds and started sleeping with white noise playing, just to drown her out. Then the gifts started. I came home one Thursday, exhausted, and almost tripped on something right in front of my door. It was a single, tiny knitted baby booty. It was blue with a little white ribbon. But it wasn't new. It was dirty, caked with what looked like mud, like it had been buried. I was completely grossed out. I nudged it with my toe, kicking it out into the middle of the hallway. I didn't want to touch it. I went inside and deadbolted my door, looking through the peephole for a long time. Nothing. The next morning, the booty was gone. I figured housekeeping must have vacuumed it up. 2 nights later, I came home. There it was again, placed perfectly in the center of my doormat. The other one, the matching blue booty. My blood ran cold. This wasn't an accident. This was her, the woman in 308. It was a message. Was it a threat? A plea for help? I couldn't breathe. I grabbed a paper towel from my room, picked up the booty, and marched down the hall to the trash chute, my hands shaking. I threw it in and listened to it fall all the way down. That night, the sounds from 308 were the worst they'd ever been. The scraping was frantic, and the weeping had turned into this high-pitched, awful wail. Then there was a crash, like glass shattering. That was it. I'd had enough. I was sleep-deprived, I was scared, and I was paying way too much for this place. I stormed down to the front desk. The night manager, a friendly guy named Miguel, was on duty. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "but I need to file a complaint. The woman in 308, I think she's having some kind of breakdown. She's screaming, she's throwing things, and she keeps leaving weird, dirty things at my door. Miguel looked up from his computer, his brow furrowed. I'm sorry, ma'am. Which room did you say? Room 308, I repeated, getting annoyed. The woman directly across from me. She's been a problem all month. Miguel's face went from confused to concerned. He turned his monitor around to face me. Ma'am, I don't know who you've been seeing, but room 308 is an unoccupied room. What? No, that's impossible. I've seen her. I hear her. Every single night. He typed something into his computer. Room 308 has been on our maintenance log for 6 months, ma'am. There was a major pipe burst. The room is completely gutted. We're talking bare concrete floors, no furniture, no power. No one has been in there since last fall. I just stared at him. You're lying. I'm telling you, I see her. I hear her. Miguel sighed, a long, tired sigh. Let me show you. He grabbed a master key. We rode the elevator up in total silence. I could feel my heart pounding. I knew what I heard. We got to the 3rd floor landing. The hallway was silent. He walked up to 308 and stuck the key in. The door swung open. The smell of plaster, mildew, and dust hit me like a wall. The room was exactly as he'd said. It was a construction site. Plastic sheeting was stapled to the wall studs. Tools were in a heap in the corner. The floor was bare concrete. There was no bed, no chair to scrape, no woman. See? Miguel said, his voice soft. No one's been in here for a long, long time. I felt like I was going to be sick. My mind was reeling. But the sounds, the booties. I must be going crazy. Miguel looked at me with this awful, pitying expression. Look, he said, trying to be helpful. We have a security camera at the end of the hall. Let's go check the footage from tonight. Maybe someone from another floor is, I don't know, messing with you, trying to scare you. It was the only thing that made sense. We went back down. He went behind the desk, pulled up the security feed, and rewound it to about 10 minutes earlier. And there I was, on the screen, storming out of my room and heading for the elevator. Okay, let's go back, he said. Let's see who left the booty. He rewound the footage to 2 nights ago. There I was, walking down the hall, coming home from work. I stopped at my door. I looked left. I looked right. Then, the me on the screen, I reached into my own coat pocket. I pulled out the small, blue, muddy booty. I bent down and placed it, very carefully, on my own doormat. Then I just stood there, staring at it for almost a full minute, before finally taking out my key and going inside my room. I stared at the monitor. That's not me. I didn't do that. That's not possible. Miguel just looked at me, his face pale, all the friendliness gone. He slowly backed away from the counter. Ma'am, I think maybe you should call someone. I backed away from the desk. I rode the elevator up, my whole body numb. I got to my room, 307. I unlocked the door. I walked over to the coat I'd been wearing that night, still hanging on the hook. I slowly put my hand into the pocket. My fingers brushed against something small, knitted, and damp. For our 10th anniversary, I wanted to do something special for my wife, Eliza. Something that wasn't just dinner or a weekend in the city. I spent weeks online, and I finally found it. The Willows, a historic bed and breakfast way out in the hill country. It was an old Victorian mansion, built in the 1890s, and the website was full of pictures of antique furniture, roaring fireplaces, and rolling, misty hills. It looked perfect. I called to book, and the owner, a woman with a sweet, crackling voice, told me her name was Mrs. Gable. When I told her it was our 10th anniversary, she sounded delighted. "Oh, that is just wonderful," she'd said. "You must get our anniversary package. It comes with champagne, roses in your room, and a special personalized touch. Just for you." It sounded charming. I booked it. The drive out was long. The last 40 minutes were on winding, unpaved roads, and our cell service died about 5 miles out. When we finally pulled up the gravel driveway, the house was, well, it was imposing. Beautiful, but in that slightly run-down, gray gardens kind of way. It was also completely silent. Ours was the only car in the driveway. Mrs. Gable met us at the door. She was exactly as I'd pictured. A tiny, elderly woman in a floral print dress, with a cloud of white hair and a kind, wrinkled smile. "Welcome, welcome," she said, bustling us inside. "We're so glad you've come. Arthur and Mary, isn't it?" I laughed. "No, I'm Ben, and this is Eliza." "Oh, goodness." She tapped her temple. "My mind. It's like a leaky sieve these days. So many happy couples. Well, Ben and Eliza, you're in the Rosewood Suite. It's our best room. Right this way." The house was a lot. Dark wood, heavy velvet curtains, and portraits of stern-looking people on every wall. It was also freezing cold, but the Rosewood Suite was beautiful. It had a huge 4-poster bed and a fireplace. And just like she'd promised, there was a bottle of champagne on ice and a vase of red roses. "And here," she said, gesturing to the antique dresser, "are your personalized touches. I do hope you like them." She smiled and shuffled out, closing the door softly behind her. "Well, this is something," Eliza said, looking around. "It's a little haunting of Hill House, but I kind of love it." I laughed and went to open the champagne. But then I stopped. I looked at the dresser. Mrs. Gable had placed 2 items there. One was a small, ornate, silver leaf frame, and inside it was a photograph. "Eliza, did you send this to her?" I asked, my voice suddenly tight. "Send what?" She came over, and she froze. It was a picture of me. I was about 7 or 8 years old, on a fishing boat with my dad, holding up a little sunfish. I was missing my 2 front teeth. I hadn't seen this photo in at least 20 years. "Ben, what the hell?" She whispered. I've never even seen that picture before. Where did she get it? I don't know. Maybe my mom? But it made no sense. How would my mom have sent it? And why? A cold, weird feeling started to creep up my spine. "Okay," Eliza said, her voice shaking a little. "Okay, that's weird. What's the other? Oh my God." She was staring at the other item. It was a small wooden music box, painted with little pink ballerinas. She walked towards it like she was in a trance, and slowly, with a trembling hand, she opened it. A tinny, faint melody began to play. Claire de Lune. Eliza let out a sound, a half sob, half gasp. "Ben, that's my grandmother's music box. The one I lost when my parents moved from our old house. It's mine." This wasn't charming. This was impossible. This wasn't a personalized touch. This was a violation. "We're leaving," I said. "Right now." We didn't even pack. We grabbed our wallets and keys and stormed out of the room. We found Mrs. Gable in the downstairs parlor, calmly dusting a porcelain doll. "Mrs. Gable," I said, my voice way too loud, "where did you get those things?" "The photograph. The music box. Where did you get them?" She looked up, not at all surprised. She just gave us that same sweet, vacant smile. "Why, you left them here, my dears. On your last visit. You always do. You're both so forgetful. "We have never been here before," Eliza said, her voice like ice. "This is our first time." Mrs. Gable just chuckled, a high, airy sound. "Oh no, dear. You and Arthur, you always come for your anniversary. You always have." "She's crazy," I whispered to Eliza. "Let's just go." We turned and went to the front door. I grabbed the heavy brass handle. It didn't turn. It was locked. "Oh, don't be silly." Mrs. Gable's voice came from behind us. "You can't leave. You just checked in. Now, why don't you sign the guest book? You always forget to sign the book when you arrive." She was gesturing to a huge, leather-bound book on a pedestal near the staircase. I was furious. I was going to call the police. I stormed over to the book, intending to. I don't even know what. And I looked down. It was open to the last page. And at the bottom, there were 2 signatures, the ink still looking fresh. Ben and Eliza, 10th anniversary. We didn't sign this," I whispered. My hands were shaking. I turned the page back. Another entry, dated 10 years ago, to the exact day of our wedding. The signatures were ours. Ben and Eliza. A lovely start. I turned the page again. And again. 20 years ago. Ben and Eliza. Our first trip. The handwriting was a loopy teenage version of my wife's. I flipped back, farther and farther. A child's messy scrawl. Benny and Ellie, best friends. I turned back to the first page of the entire book. A faded, spidery script from 1894. Arthur and Mary, our new home. What is this?" I whispered, turning to my wife. But Eliza wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Mrs. Gable, and the terror on her face was gone. It had been replaced by a look of calm, a look of peace. She was smiling. That same vacant, gentle smile. "Isn't it wonderful, dear?" she said. Her voice was soft and different. "We're finally home." "Eliza, what are you talking about?" "Let's go." I grabbed her arm. She pulled away gently. "Don't be silly, Arthur," she said, chuckling, just like the old woman. "We just got here, and you know how I hate to travel." I looked from her to the old woman, and then back to the framed photo I had grabbed from the room. I looked closely at the 7-year-old me, the boy with the missing teeth, and I saw something I'd missed. Scratched into the silver of the frame, so small I'd overlooked it, were 2 words. Arthur Jr. Mrs. Gable was smiling at me. "Your wife is right, dear. It's so good to have you back. It's been so long. We've decided this time you're going to stay." And that's all for tonight. Remember, the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us. The ones who might even live right next door. If these stories serve as a good reminder to trust your instincts, then show your support and like and subscribe. Hitting that bell means you'll get a warning before the next nightmare begins. Sleep well, if you can.